We have all the way from Sweden, bass master extraordinaire. Dude, how come you don't have an accent?
People come in and be like, "You're not Swedish. You're not blonde, and you don't have an accent. You're a liar." And I'm like, "Oh, I swear." I had to show them like my Swedish driver's license or something like that. If you wanted to learn to speak, to start imitating. So I would watch the news and I would imitate how they said things. Or you could speak like this with your Swedish style. Like I'll meet people from Sweden that they're visiting or whatever.
Yeah.
At the Rainbow or something, and I'll be like, "Hey, you know," and I can tell right away when they speak English what city of Sweden they're from. Oh. They speak with their Swedish local dialect. I'm like, "Oh, see, you're from Gothenburg." Like, how do you know? Like, after it's other people are listening. If I'm just talking to them, it's like, or sometimes they might think, you know, I don't know where they're from. I'm like, where are you from? Or we're just talking, and I go like, "You're from Gothenburg, huh?" And they're like, "Oh my God."
That is,
you know, it speaks like this with a Gothenburg accent when you speak English, you know. And like, it's like, dude, I can tell what street you grew up on. And he talked like this, you know, with this, and the girls are like, "Oh my God." So they would just ignore me and they're like, "Oh my God, your accent is so sexy." And I'm all standing there like, "Great."
Bjorn Englen. Bjorn, come on out here. Thank you very much for being here, dude. All right, Bjorn, man, thank you so much for showing up today and doing this with us.
My pleasure.
You're from Sweden, but we're not cooking anything from Sweden.
No. Tacos.
I spent a lot of time in Mexico touring, picked up a lot of the food habits and the food culture. I love cooking these days. Just kind of like thinking outside the box and starting to make things, and you learn that way. You try different things and to not be afraid to try. It's almost like music. Not be afraid to play a wrong note or, you know, try different things. And it's creative, you know, and I love it. And when people, like my girlfriend, when she likes my food, it's a compliment. I'm like, "Oh my God," and she really does. So it's relaxing, it's fun. You pour a glass of wine and you're cooking and you're talking and playing with a cat.
And what's his name?
Chickling.
Chickling?
Chickling, which means chicken in Swedish.
Ah, okay.
So my girlfriend named him, not knowing that he pretty much only likes to eat chicken. And she just named him that because he had these little chicken legs, you know, when he was little. So she's like, "I've named him Chickling." And then I said, "That means chicken in Swedish." She's like, "Get out of here."
Okay, so the tacos we're making today, did you taste these like in a restaurant in Mexico and like, "Oh, I want to make something that tastes like that," or did you just come up with it off the top of your head?
I mean, it's pretty common ingredients. You know, I make my own sauce, so that's
Okay, yeah, I've never seen.
the Greek yogurt you can use.
That's what I'm very curious about this. We're gonna make today.
And
So
we'll throw the meat on so we can get that going. But
okay, let's turn this on.
The Greek yogurt is one thing you can use as a base, or you can use like organic mayonnaise, and then it has actually more flavor to me. But the organic mayonnaise is important because it has a different flavor than regular mayonnaise, in my opinion.
Yes.
Greek yogurt's less flavor, and then you know the flavor will be in the spices. Lime juice is one thing. A little bit of ketchup will add a little bit of sweetness to it, and hot sauce. This one's organic.
Oh, I forgot to bring my ghost pepper sauce.
Oh, I like it spicy, but I got to be careful with other people because like most people don't like it. Even a lot of Mexicans don't like it as spicy as I do, and you know it's.
You're Swedish. You're not supposed to like spicy
I know,
food, dude.
it was very
bland
and salty, but like I didn't grow up with spicy food. Now it's more, you know, the people travel a lot in Sweden and they bring their ideas back home, and then they cook more Italian or Asian or whatever it is. So they use more spices now. But growing up, not a lot of spices.
Where do you want to start? We got the grill preheating.
Let's do the meat.
So how many kids in your family?
Three. Three brothers.
All three boys.
I'm the middle. So, but yeah, so the music didn't come from my family. It was friends I was hanging out with, and I picked it up from them, and we'd listen to bands together, music and records. And
what was your first record? What's the first record you bought?
Probably the first one I got, I think, was Paul Stanley's solo record.
Oh,
a long time ago, yeah. So, you know, a friend of mine.
Not even the best Kiss solo album. That's a different debate.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and back then, you know, I could only afford to buy a certain number of albums, and then I would borrow the rest of them from my friends, and I would, you know, record them onto a cassette tape, and then they would borrow my records, and then, you know, you'd be careful with that, because sometimes back, you know, we were pretty good at giving them back, but like these days, you know, you would lend somebody a CD, you'd never see it again.
You never see it again.
Yeah,
Right,
so-
right. Now, how easy was it to get? I'm assuming they had record stores. You could go in there and buy anything if you had the money, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your first concert? Do you remember the first concert you saw?
Motorhead, believe it or not. And I grew up in a small town, and we never had like
Yeah.
large because they played at the small hockey arena, but like they played there, and it was. They warned everybody it's going to be very loud. I don't think I wore any earplugs, but I wore earplugs for the rest of my life after that. But it was very loud.
Yeah. What year
but
was
it
this?
was cool.
What year?
1984.
84.
So I was 13 years old.
Yeah. So 13 years old, you're at a Motorhead concert. Who'd you go with?
That's a good question. I think I went with my friend Max, who was my first bandmate.
Yeah.
And we had a little punk band together. He was into punk music. I think it was me and Max and maybe my friend Aaron. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It
Good
was so
time?
long. It was maybe more than that, a couple of other friends too.
Yeah.
It was great, yeah. And I did a review because I had my own fanzine.
Oh, right on.
So I did my first live review. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if it was my first because I did some other bands, but my first major band live review.
Right on.
And yeah,
You get a lot of reads?
not really.
Not really.
I mean, I started out, the first one I think I printed like 50 copies, and then
Yeah.
the last one was actually 500.
Well, that's good.
And there was none left over, so
Yeah.
I think I gave a lot of
Yeah,
them away.
right on, yeah.
But it was fun. I really loved writing. I still love writing. I
Yeah.
just kind of
Now, that reminds me, because like I said, we were listening to the Soul Sign, the 2011 on the way here.
right.
And Claudia asked me, so he's the bass player, right? And I said, yeah. And I go, I think he writes the music too. I know he
Right.
produces it and engineers it and everything.
Right.
Do you write the lyrics as well? It's just preheating. It's cool.
Okay.
And
Turn it down a little bit.
Yeah. Do you write lyrics as well?
Yes. Everything. Yeah.
So you write all the music. Okay. So tell me how this works then.
Well, I'll come up with I'll play something on the bass, and I'm like, oh, that's great, and I'll put it on my phone, or I used to just plug straight into my recording system and record it.
Ready?
Record a bass line, and the guitar kind of writes itself from there, typically. Or I'll hum something into my phone, like a melody or a riff or something that comes to mind. Then it's sort of like the vocal melody and the lyrics sort of write themselves. And somehow, if I write lyrics, not consciously keeping the song in mind that I just wrote, but I tend to subconsciously write lyrics for ideas that I currently have, or something that I did recently, so.
Have you ever written a response to another song? Do you know what I'm asking? Does that make sense?
Like inspired by another song?
Yeah, yeah.
Not really.
No?
I don't like, when it sounds like something else, I usually don't use the idea. There's something on the new record coming up it's like a riff of something that I was familiar with, so I changed the riff.
Oh,
and I don't know
okay.
if that band would have recognized it, but maybe.
Yeah.
But it close enough to where I don't want it to be like something else. And I don't know if it was inspired by that or just accidentally happened to sound like that.
Sure.
So I threw around a few notes, and that's actually the single that's already out called Clean Soil.
Clean Soil is the new single
Yeah.
from Soul Sign. And I did, none of that song, but I did hear the promo you have out.
Yes.
For that, it's like 45, whatever. It's not
Like a
long.
minute, yeah.
It's not long enough.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I was listening to it on the way to the grocery store today to pick up this stuff.
Right.
And then it went into some crappy hair metal, and I'm like, no, that's not the right song. What the hell happened there?
Right.
Because my Amazon just goes to the next song, right?
Right.
So I had to go back. So I listened to that like 5 times on the way to the store. Sounds really good. And
Yeah.
I have a friend that Bjorn knows in Germany. Her name is Susanne Muller. She is Rocket Queen Promotions. And she sent me a link to their new single that's coming out on the 15th, I think she said. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. And it is Soul Sign's cover of Cream's White Room. But I just have to say, because I'm not a fan of covers, I think they suck, and I don't think anyone needs to do them anymore, especially White Room, because how many times have you heard that song? That said, Bjorn wrote this intro to it on the bass that is mind-boggling. Dude,
Thank you.
that is just so incredibly musical, and I love the changes. And then,
You have to blame Billy Sheehan because he's the one who got me into tapping.
so that was
So
Billy Sheehan
it's his fault.
inspired. We'll talk to Billy. Thank you very much for that. We'll bring that up. And they changed some of the lyrics, which was cool. It's not at the station anymore. It's the metal thing. It's a graveyard, so that's good. And I really, really love your take on that song.
Thank you.
Because it's not, I mean, obviously it follows the Cream
Right.
song,
Right.
but it's not the Cream song.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No, and that's what it's a great song,
Yeah.
but we figured it should be played differently,
Yeah,
performed differently. I love the Cream. I love Jack Bruce.
Yeah, I was going to ask you okay, so rumor has it, and by rumor, I mean Wikipedia. Rumor has it that you started playing the drums in '84?
Correct.
So you were like 14 years old before
13,
you,
yeah.
13 before you even picked up
Not even 13, 12 and a half.
12 and a half. He picks up the drums, and then what made you switch to bass?
Well, I think it was drums was very natural for me, but I realized that, first of all, you really got to practice. You can't, if you have great sense of rhythm, that's great, but drums is so much more to it. Coordination and the equipment just had too many screws, too many stands for me. And not only that, like, I look out the window and the neighbors were like looking over, talking to each other, giving me dirty looks. I'm like, this is not going to work. I was surprised my mom actually picked up a drum kit for me.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you very much.
But I switched to bass, and we
Why?
sold
bass,
the drum.
Why bass and not guitar?
I wanted to be mobile, and watching like Steve Harris of Iron Maiden and running around on stage, and I didn't want to be stuck back there. I was,
Wait a minute. Wait, you're telling me Dave Murray didn't run around on stage?
not as much. Sorry.
Okay.
No offense to him.
No, I just think
I'm
it's
cutting
because,
this kind of messed up.
Yeah, I see that. That's all right.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to mention it. But since
Okay,
you brought it up.
we'll do it this way.
Oh, that's really funky, sir.
Yeah. Well, I improvise. This is embarrassing, but yeah.
Okay. So
But-
I think the real reason is because the guitar has 6 strings and the bass only has 4. Little too
I never thought of it
complicated.
that way, to be honest with you.
I'm telling you, man.
I was watching a band across the street, a punk band, and I was just fascinated with how fat the bass sounded, and then
Yeah.
how can you make something sound that big with just force playing one note at a time, and that I was sold on it.
Who inspired? What bass player inspired you the most?
Well, at
growing up?
first, it wasn't really a specific bass player. It was like bands, like, believe it or not, like Judas Priest and AC/DC, who had like very passive bass lines. But I loved those bands, and I thought the bass, even though it was played very simple, I thought it was fascinating. How I think a lot of people didn't hear or didn't listen for the bass, but I was like, man, it's great, man. Everybody
Don't
picked
cut
up
your
the
fingers, please.
everybody would pick up the guitar or the drums, and I'm
Yeah,
like, why is somebody
right.
playing bass? So I was like, I'm going to play bass. And so you can cut, onion, I like to cut them really small pieces, but like for the bigger the piece, my opinion, the more flavor sometimes.
Yes.
So for tacos, you can make them a little bigger. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here.
I don't know either.
This
That's
onion was
okay.
a little strange in my opinion, but I don't know why it happened this way, but
It's okay. We're talking.
hopefully the camera's not picking this up.
Yeah, no, show it. We'll edit this right out. Don't worry.
Okay, ignore the what do you call it?
So you start playing. How long did you play drums before you switched?
Not long.
Not long.
Like a month.
Couple months.
Couple of months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you pick up the bass.
yeah.
Did you have lessons? Did you study? Did you get
Very-
a teacher? How did you learn? Did you self-taught by ear?
Self-taught. Very few lessons. I had a couple of guys. They know who they are. At least one of them, and one may not remember it, and I don't remember that guy's name, but one of them knows. They gave me really good habits right away and showed me and steered me in the right direction as far as the correct, proper technique, and taught me some 12-bar blues, which is very fundamental for any style of music, really, any instrument to learn, in my opinion. And it kind of got me on the right track, and then there was really not a lot of books or stuff around. There was no internet.
Right.
Very limited, so I started playing in bands, but when I wasn't playing in bands, I had very little access to any sort of like informational, like scales and stuff like that.
So, outside of music and cooking, do you have any other hobbies or interests?
You know what? I wish I did. I mean,
You haven't skied much since you moved to California?
what's that?
You haven't skied much?
Not much. I've been to Mammoth a couple of times. I skied in Big Bear a couple of times. But no, not really.
Yeah?
Skied in Sweden a couple of times recently with my nieces and nephews.
Nice.
My brother. That
Now
was
watch
fun.
your hands with the pepper now.
Yes.
Don't touch your eyes.
Right. So, yeah, we'll get that.
Now, growing up in
Get the
Sweden,
steak here.
You play hockey?
Well, for fun. You know, but I was never on a team or never learned how to skate properly. Can't really skate backwards, which you have to.
You have to.
You have to when
yeah.
you play hockey.
You have to skate.
But I played for fun. We did a lot of street hockey
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
As kids, and that was a lot of fun.
Do you want to put those on a plate?
Sure.
If I can find one.
Oh, that's fine. You can.
Okay, we'll just leave it there
leave it
then.
with that. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. No worries.
So we'll cut up the steaks here. Get
Yeah.
going. Tortillas. We need to warm up.
Okie dokie.
So, you know, tacos doesn't, it can be any way. There's no rules with cooking, in my opinion. You don't have to do it traditional way, and I'm not saying I am, but I think you can do whatever you want, really. I think that's the beauty of not using any recipes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just do it your own way, you know. People shouldn't be afraid to cook and you know, and just shoot from the hip. That's how you learn. Anything in life, I think, is like that, right?
You got to learn by doing.
Yeah.
So outside of the family,
Yeah.
what are you most proud of in your life? What have you done that makes you sit back and go, yeah, Bjorn did that, and that's...
What am I the most proud of?
Yeah.
I mean, I was a good soccer player growing up, but I stopped playing at like age 14, something like that, 15. I was a good goalie.
Yeah?
I just
yeah.
wasn't quite tall. I wasn't quite tall enough to become a pro. And once I got into music, I mean, music took over, and that was it.
Goalies are insane anyway.
But you know, I'm pretty proud of some of the people I played with. Played with a lot of wonderful.
Yeah? Yeah, let's talk about that right now then, since you brought it up.
Yeah.
In 2011, this guy had the most incredible year of any bass player I've ever heard of. He played with Malmsteen, Uli John Roth, and Tony McAlpine. How did all of this come about?
In the same year, well, my first gig with Yngwie was at the NAMM show with no rehearsal.
Oh,
No pressure, right?
Right.
2,000 musicians were watching.
let's wait
But
until we get this off
next
straight.
to the stage was Uli John Roth watching the show on my side of the stage. And afterwards he said, that was incredible. You didn't miss anything. And he couldn't believe it. And I was like, well, now you have to play with me too. Because I don't like to rehearse either. He says, he's a real funny guy and a dear friend. And that was, you know.
No, you toured with Uli?
I played California shows with him.
California
Yeah.
shows? How many?
I don't know, in a period of like 3 years.
Oh,
3, 4
God.
years.
Oh, that's a
Played-
lot then.
Played a bunch of shows, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
different lineups every time. Great players.
How complicated, how difficult is his solo stuff to learn? Because I listened to that and he's... man.
Yeah, his solo stuff is it's challenging, yeah.
It sounds so complex.
I learned some
to an
really-
untrained ear.
Yeah, I was going to do a tour with him in 2015, and the tour never happened, unfortunately. And it was a U.S. tour. And there was some intricate stuff, solo stuff that I was learning for that. Typically, the shows I did, we did some of that, but we did a lot of old Scorpions, which great songs. And
Yeah, those are
not
awesome.
super complicated, but a lot of fun.
He's one of my favorite guitarists too.
Yeah.
However, my favorite, one of my all-time favorites, and we talked about this in the pre-interview.
Yeah.
The guy who has to be the most underrated guitarist on the planet is
Yeah.
Mr. Tony McAlpine.
Oh my God, yeah.
And how did you hook up with? He is my favorite. Oh my God, I love his piano concertos.
Yeah.
Melt your brain.
It was, yeah.
So how'd you hook up with him?
It was like one thing led to another, really, because when I first started playing with Uli, the first rehearsal, Mark Bowles was on vocals,
And we can put the meat in
and
here.
Mark immediately said, I have a band with Tony McAlpine, we need a bass player. And Virgil Donati is on drums. I'm like, well, that sounds like a super band. So I went in and jammed with him, and nothing happened to the band, but Tony called me afterwards, like 20 minutes later, he calls me and said, listen, I'm going on tour with I'm doing my solo thing again, and I'd like you to play bass. Would you be interested? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
So that was like one thing led to another, and then now Mark is in my band Soul
Yeah,
Song. So it's like, it just playing with Yngwie led me
I
to
was
all
going to
these-
say, was Mark and Yngwie when you were in Yngwie?
No.
Okay.
Mark quit in 2001, and I joined in 2007.
I see.
So,
Okay.
yeah, there's
All right.
a little gap in between there. Doogie White was on vocals before I joined, and when I joined, Ripper.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that was great.
Yeah, guys, you guys play with everyone.
Yeah.
It's
And then
unreal.
Ripper, I met Ripper, and
Yeah.
I knew Craig Goldie, guitarist of Dio from before.
Yeah.
So when the Dio Disciples were looking for,
Yeah, you're getting
a
ahead. Stop it.
bassist.
Stop.
Okay.
You're getting ahead here. Stop that right now.
Okay.
We already covered that. Brings us to our fan question. Okay, so we have a
Okay.
question from a fan. This is from Orlando Russo in Montreal, Canada. He is part of the Metal Voice crew.
okay,
And speaking of Dio Disciples,
yeah,
when Dio turned into Dio Disciples,
yeah,
and then it turned into Dio Returns,
right.
okay? So you're on stage touring with a hologram of Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? What was it like to play in that situation? How did you did you feel awkward? How did you feel about playing with the hologram?
I didn't, they were all his bandmates, except for me. And obviously, Tim Ripper Owens and Oni Logan are singers in Dio Disciples. And Dio Returns, same lineup. They were all great friends of Ronnie's. I never knew Ronnie. So that gives, I think it's a nice outside perspective to have a guy in the band that's detached emotionally.
Yeah.
But it was great. I'm playing with a band that are used to playing to his vocals, so we had pre-recorded vocals. Obviously Simon Wright has to play to click to play, so we can play to the recorded vocal track. But it was great. I mean, it was really, really cool.
You didn't feel like it was like weird. It was like out of body experience, kind of playing with a hologram. How did the hologram look?
Greek yogurt, by the way. I'm making the sauce now, and some lime here.
Lime juice, Greek yogurt.
Okay.
So how did the hologram look? I didn't see it. So
It looked good.
Yeah,
They put a
yeah,
lot
it
of
was
work
good.
into it.
Yeah.
It was hard. All the work and a big crew every day to not too much hot sauce and to jalapeno. You can hot sauce is whatever you want, and a little bit of ketchup to add some sweetness. I think the major thing was having a crew, just a tiny bit of ketchup. Depends on how sweet you want it. Setting it up every day and transporting it, and that was expensive. And I think Wendy Dio, our manager, was just said, enough of that, and we'll do something similar in the future, but it won't be a hologram.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So we tried it, and it was cool, but
So we have something to look forward to then. There's going to be some more of the Dio Disciples or.
Well, we're not going to, most likely we're going to go under Dio Disciples. And
Okay.
we'll do something similar, but it won't be a hologram. Well, I'm sure we're going to have some screens with some fun
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm making the sauce, avocado oil. I'm going to add a little bit black pepper, a little bit of salt by taste. Thyme is pretty cool, pretty good. You don't want to use too much of that because it has a lot of flavor, and it's more of an Italian spice, really, but I tend to like it.
Okay.
So a little bit of olive oil, add some fat in there. That's it.
So what's your favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh.
I think it's a masterpiece. I think I've seen it 98 times. I don't, something like that.
Differently.
Yeah. And what I do, I
That was good.
use big pans, and I heat up a bunch of them at the same time at very low heat while I'm cooking all the other things.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yeah
and I
get it.
leave even a steak in the pan on low heat just to keep it warm.
Okay.
Everything warm, and even the beans, all that
these
stuff.
on. Let's get these on.
So I do what I call my slow cooking. I love cooking, so it takes me 2 hours to make a meal sometimes because I'm talking to my girlfriend and I'm playing with a cat and I'm drinking some wine and I just love it. It's I guess it's my hobby. Yeah, if I have a hobby,
yeah, absolutely.
You know, and you never thought I'd be interested in cars, but I don't know a lot about cars, but I'd love to work on cars.
Oh, really?
You know?
So what are you working? What car do you got?
Oh my God, I don't know if I want to tell you. I drive a Volvo. Can you believe that?
No.
Yeah. People don't believe me.
You
when
do
I say
not drive a Volvo. How stereotypical can
I've
you get?
driven the
You
same-
drive the Volvo eating meatballs, don't you?
Yeah. I've had the same car for 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
16 years, something like that.
So tell us about Soul Sign now. You got a new lineup? You got a new album coming out, a new single?
New lineup, well, not really. Rob Math has been in a band. Well, he joined back in 2010.
Where did you find Rob?
We met at the Fender booth at the NAMM show, and we started talking. And I said, I said, you look like you're stylistically, you sound like this. How do you know? Something tells me you play like this, whatever. And he's kind of like a bluesy shredder, kind of like a Richie Kotzen.
Yeah,
And he's just, I think he's the best guitar player in the world. And I'm just not saying that because he's in my band. I'm saying it because I mean it.
I agree. He shreds.
He's unbelievable.
I had never heard him.
Yeah.
I've heard of him. I know of him.
Yeah.
He's going to do our podcast here too.
Awesome.
Because he's in Leatherwolf and Player right now. So I've talked to him about those things.
Yeah.
But I never heard him play.
Yeah.
And then I heard, and wow. And on that video,
he's
he shreds.
Unbelievable.
I mean, unreal. Yeah.
Plays like no one else. And really awesome. We work really well together. And when I record his guitar tracks, it's like the way we work together is just, it's awesome. And it's really cool. And so he joined and he left the band for a while. But shortly after he joined, Mike Cancino joined in 2011.
No, he's the drummer, right?
Yeah.
And where's he from?
He's from Indio originally and grew up in that area in Coachella Valley.
How'd you cross paths with him?
Very interesting story. We picked up a gig playing cover tunes up in the mountains, and a drummer had moved to the East Coast. So we needed a drummer, and it was 2-3 weeks away from the gig. And I said, well, I got to find a drummer. So I started calling my list of drummers, which is probably 30 people in my old phone book, and nobody's available. And I never made more than 2 phone calls to find a musician. Well, I can't do it, but I know a guy or something. I ran out of options. I started placing ads in Craigslist and recycling.
Oh my God.
Crazy places where you get, as you know, you get crazy people calling you. Couldn't find anyone, so I went back to the first guy that I skipped, which was Mike's brother. His name's Chad, and Chad sadly passed away about a month ago. But Chad was an amazing guy, an amazing drummer, amazing musician. And I had played a couple of gigs with him. I said, Chad, can you do the gig? I kind of thought you were busy, but no, actually I can't, but I'll send my brother. I'm like, what do you mean send my brother? I shouldn't have said that because Chad's a great guy. You could totally trust him. So he's sent Mike, and the rest is history.
Right on.
So I gave him his CD, and I said, take it home, listen to it. And I called him a week later. I said, pick 2 songs you want to come in and jam with us to play original music. And he said, it doesn't matter. I know the whole album. So he learned the whole entire album. We show up me and Rob show up at rehearsal. And he's there he drives 2 hours to get there. And he's 45 minutes earlier than we were. He's got smoke coming up behind him. I'm like, did he bring a smoke machine? It was an espresso maker. And he had mugs lined up for everybody. And we start playing the first song, and we get to the second verse, and he stops and he stands up, goes, stop. It doesn't go 2 times before the second pre-chorus. It goes 3 times. Let's do it again. So he's correcting us.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
Rob and I are just looking at each other going wow. He just gave the gig to himself. So musicians,
dude, Eric
listen
Singer,
and learn,
Eric Singer did that.
Yeah.
In his Kiss
Yeah.
audition.
Yeah.
Because he had learned all the songs too, and of course they had just got off the road, and you change them on the road,
Right.
Right, and so he's like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong.
Right.
And Gene and Paul looking at each other, and then afterwards he came up and asked for their you had an autograph a whole bunch of their stuff. He's like, I'm a fan first, man, and so they're like, you're in the
That's
band. Isn't that cool?
That's so cool.
But correcting them is just unreal. Yeah, and I think we're ready to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't typically put cabbage on. You can. Onion, jalapeno, the sauce I just made here.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
pretty much it. Keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
You can, and again, you can do whatever you want. You can make tacos. I made tacos with the most strange stuff, leftovers and whatever
Yeah.
you want. I mean, so I think that's what's fun about cooking, is improvising like that.
Absolutely, and again, it's another creative outlet.
100%.
You know.
Do we have any of those ready?
Yeah.
And what I do a lot of times, I leave them on so they stay warm. We don't have to do that in this
Yeah.
case. And I put the stuff on them while they're on very low heat on large pans.
I see.
And then they stay warm that way,
Yeah, I like that.
But
I'll have to start cooking tacos here.
yeah, and you leave everything on very, very, very low heat. Not only does it stay warm, but it kind of slow cooks the food too. So
Yeah.
it makes it tender. But it's, again, there's no rules. I don't.
So when the album comes out, the 15th,
The single,
the single,
White Room,
okay,
comes out on the 15th. It's
Okay.
called Out of the Dark is the intro.
that's the yeah.
White Room is the song. So this is two songs in one. sort of.
Okay, and
Short intro.
when's the album coming out?
We don't have a release date,
You
but
don't-
we're
okay.
looking at August or September.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then a tour following, I'm assuming.
We
I hope.
Yeah, we're looking at that, and then we're looking at options for that. We're most likely going to do an opening slot for someone bigger, like everybody else does. And
Right.
It's a great thing to do. And
You have anything else coming up? Anything else you want to? Where else can we go see you? You have any gigs coming up?
BjornEnglen.com and soulsignband.com. SOULSIGN.
I will also put those in the YouTube comments
Okay.
there too, right? So people
Yeah.
can follow you on
Cool.
that. Do you have any upcoming gigs there?
I don't. I'm doing some
Any
clinics.
jams or clinics?
Clinics in
Where-
Sweden coming up in May, and I got some dates for that. I'm doing one around Stockholm for anybody in Sweden that's listening. One in north hasn't been confirmed, and then a couple other ones one in the south and one on the west coast. So
Okay,
I'll have
so-
those dates up pretty
Did
soon.
you guys hear that in Sweden? Bass
Yeah.
clinic coming up. So make sure you guys are watching the social media. You're following him on social media. Make sure you're following us because the information will be there too. And before we wrap up, again, I do want to give my apologies to Billy Sheehan. We ran out of time again, dude. I'm so sorry. You did influence this guy, though,
Oh, my
and he
God.
was here.
Majorly,
so,
yeah.
Hopefully we'll get to you next time, sir. Thank you so much. Horns up. And let's eat.
Don't talk like that. I'm gonna talk to you if you want. Even if you're sober, like, I'm not talking.
Right?
You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not being real.
Why should you?
Exactly.
I'll go here. Oh, let's see if I can make it.
We got that?
There we go.
Whew. We're getting full, Pat. We're getting full.
Okay, let me know when you're ready. Yeah, more is more. Like Ingve always used to say.